Hi, and welcome to the Ruby Heart of the Dragon live stream. This is Marcella Eversoul, and we have another great show for you with Soul Level Astrologer Mark Borax. Today, he's going to be talking about turning karma into grace and how we can mine our shadows. So, I just have a couple of announcements before we get into today's discussion. The first is that you're all amazing. Thank you for ordering Mark's new book. It's been just such an awesome experience to be on this ride. And I'm going to drop a comment here just to remind people that if you've already been able to get through the first chapter of the book, at least, or wherever you're at in the book, if you want to leave a review, I just put into the chat a way that you can look at good ways to leave reviews on Goodreads or Amazon. So that's out there for you. We would love to get more reviews and to share it too. So please share with friends and family. The next piece is that next week will be our last live stream until further notice. We'll get them going again, but it's summertime and our child's out of school, so we're going to be doing some playing in the next couple months and then revisiting exactly what our fall program will look like. So please join us again next week, and then we'll be taking a pause. And then the last two things is Mark has two book talks coming up. One is going to be in Keene, New Hampshire on July 22nd at Toadstool Books. And the other is going to be in Colorado on August 24th. And I believe that one's in Denver. Is that right, Mark? Let me bring you in.
Yeah, it's at the Mercury Cafe.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, it's at the Mercury Cafe in Denver, Colorado. So again, that's July 22nd in Keene, New Hampshire, and then August 24th in Denver, Colorado. So we're excited to be on the ride of the in-person part of the book talks now, which is quite exciting for both of us. So I'll just turn it over to you, Mark, and thanks again, everyone, for joining us.
Welcome, everyone. This is Soul Level Astrologer Mark Borax with From Karma to Grace, Mining Shadows to Get to Light. This has been one of my favorite topics for a long time because the only way I think there's going to be a future for the human race is if we can learn how to turn around the darkness, turn around the karma. And learning to turn around shadows is different than ignoring shadows, or also different than getting so obsessed and stuck inside them that you can't really turn them around. So there's an art. There's a real life art to turning karma to grace, to mining the shadows to get to the light. And that art is crucial right now because, so far as I can tell, we've bottomed out as a species. I don't think we've ever gotten as stuck in the darkness as we are now. Maybe there's been some other times throughout history with similar mass delusion, but there's far more people alive now, far more complications. And so far as I can tell, just even looking at the next 20 years, for example, I don't think it's going to automatically get better. I think the shadows are going to proliferate. But I don't think that's because things are getting much worse. I think that's because the curtains between the bad that already was and collective consciousness have gotten torn to shreds. And so what's really happening now is that the rotten foundations of society that were always there are much less hidden and much more exposed. It can be frightening. It can be daunting. Can be crazy making. And um, any of those things are better than it being ignored, uh, and causing numbness. So, in order to mine the shadows to get to the light, it takes a faith that there is something worth getting to. If you're a person who's somewhat like myself, that thing that you have to have faith that there's something good to get to has to come both on a personal, individual level as well as on a collective level. Um, because even if I myself reach a point in my life where I'm absolutely thriving and healthy and creative and happy, um, if my species is being twisted, um, demented, swallowing lies, destroying the world, it's not going to feel so good to me. The fact that in my own personal life, I'm doing incredibly well. Whereas the possible world for my children or my children's children is almost just hopeless, non existent. Nor, on the opposite hand, is it going to serve me to feel that collective humanity is getting better and my life sucks. Though, if I had to pick two, that's the one I would pick. I'd rather have a my life sucks, but my children have a beautiful world to inherit. But of course, it's not a choice between the two, and these things are interrelated. One way that they're interrelated is that there is a distortion, a darkness that has set into the species. Some of my teachers and influences believe that that darkness came in way back in Atlantis, prior to recorded history, and it's been there for a long time, in which we've gotten drastically turned against ourselves, turned against Earth, turned against existence, and that um, distortion has reached epidemic proportions now, but is very insidious and very subtle, because I think few of us recognize how foundationally we've gotten turned against ourselves. This is different than the idea that you might have done something wrong. It's more foundational, it's more primal, that you are wrong, not that you've done wrong, but that there's something the matter with you. And those self-canceling thought forms get reinforced every day by advertising. Advertising is incredibly proficient at teaching billions of people there's something the matter with you. Unless you smell right, like colognes and perfumes and deodorants, there's something really wrong with you. Don't get close to other people. How dare you just actually be yourself? And unless you look right, unless you look like the movie stars, unless you dress right, unless you think the way everyone else wants you to think, there's something wrong with you. Those are the messages. Those are never the overt messages, but those are always the subtle messages of advertising. Advertising is designed to make billions of people unhappy and dissatisfied, so they spend more money trying to purchase happiness and cosmetic surgery and all kinds of things. Those programs can only work until a person wakes up and realizes that your own strange, funky, erratic, erotic, exotic, unusual nature has a place in the universe. Not that you're perfect, because none of us are, but that there's a perfection to your existence. Not that you have to stop growing and learning and awakening and improving, but that below all of those changes and improvements, there's something so right about the simple fact that you exist. This rarely comes naturally to people in the modern age. It's something that takes a great journey, a great interior journey to land in the bedrock certainty that there is something so right about the fact that you exist, that you deserve to take up space on this world and in this universe. Until you complete that journey, there's a lot of forces vying to control you. There's a lot of parasitic entities, energies, thought forms, conditionings. There's a lot of distortions. And when you convince an entire species of human beings that there's something the matter with you just the way you are, and that you have to do all kinds of things to earn your right to exist, most of which don't have to do with anything intrinsic, but have to do with all kinds of exterior compromises to get you to be like everyone else. Until you have a sufficient awakening and you complete that inner depth journey to land on the primal bedrock certainty that you belong here, that you fit in this earth. There's room for your quirky, crazy, eccentric life. Until you get there, there are so many forces constantly bombarding you with the counter messaging. There's something the matter with you. You better hurry up and get in line. The darkness of our time, which broadcasts the message that something is drastically, irreparably wrong. Something is wrong. Something's wrong with you. Something's wrong with me. Something's wrong with them. Something's wrong with us. Something's wrong with humanity. Something's wrong with Earth. Something's the matter. It's not that those thought forms are entirely false, because there are a lot of things wrong at our time. There are a lot of things wrong with government, media, education, industry, environmental concerns. It's not that those ideas are entirely false. It's that they've supplanted the basic well-being of humanity. Because down underneath the things that are the matter, perhaps with your own life, perhaps with the way that collective humanity is going, until you journey down below all that messaging, your life isn't your own. You can't turn karma to grace. You can't mine the shadows to get to the light, because there's always another thing to matter and another thing to matter. But if you make it down in to the core rightfulness, the underlying rightfulness of your own existence, the underlying rightfulness of all that is, the underlying basic well-being of the universe, you don't fully inherit our birthright as a species. There has got to be a part of you that is immune to the psychic sickness of our time, um, that can really gain the consciousness and the vibration and the knowledge of how right it is that you exist, that there's an earth here, that that we're all alive at this wild time of tremendous change. And so to get from karma to grace is to feel and own and breathe into the underlying rightfulness of existence. If that becomes the source that you tap, even if you're going to address problems, even if you're going to address problems and wrongnesses on any magnitude, from the tiny wrongnesses that occur when you get a splinter to the huge wrongnesses of our time, such as millions of people being completely misguided by government lies, government folly. When you address wrongnesses of any magnitude from a place of a deeper constitutional rightfulness, you get to breathe deeply into the rightfulness of the moment. When you use that underlying rightfulness as the source that empowers you to address and struggle with all the challenges, either personal or collective, you're turning around the karma to grace. You're mining the shadows to get to the light. And the shadows of our time are very thick. It is very easy to get lost in a sense of nihilism, a sense of some existential horror, a wrongness. So it takes an internal battle to fight with the demons, to fight with the darkness. And if you source that wrestling match in a deeper love, a deeper creativity, a deeper understanding of the interconnectedness of all things, then you are turning karma toward grace. You're using the darkness to get to the light. Let's see if there's any questions or comments here in our studio or out there in the greater world.
Hi, Mark. We don't have any comments yet or questions flowing in from the electronic universe out there. Yeah, I don't feel like I have anything in particular to add to what you're saying. I guess, want to elevate this conversation into one that feels really important, because it just flips everything. Like you're talking about whether the wrong is stubbing your toe or you're confronting the wrongs about homelessness. It just feels so important to be able to find the places that we can liberate ourselves through that deep connection to the times we're living in, no matter what happens, no matter what's happening.
Well, I think one of the benefits of living in such a chaotic, traumatic time of history is that trauma strips the inessential. And like a lot of people saw through the whole COVID thing, um, the things that they thought they needed, they actually didn't really need many of those things. Many people stopped commuting to work, stopped commuting to school, started working from home long distance, started going to school at home long distance, started connecting with their family, um, started bringing life back into their immediate surroundings. Um, and I think that now that we're coming out of those years of enforced quarantine, it's good to continue that lesson as to, well, what do you really need? What can you do without?
Mhm.
What is love? What is health? Why are you here? And um, so this period of reassessment, I think it's causing a lot of people around the world to take another look at what they're doing in their life and who they are and who they're doing it with. And um, a lot of relationships and families got torn apart through the whole COVID thing, by ending up on completely opposite sides of the vaccine fence, the vaccine story. So many of my clients' lives were disrupted, were horribly disrupted. I saw mothers whose children got taken away from them. I had many clients in a state of um, anguish, and brothers and sisters and parents and children and getting split apart, and um, people forced to get vaccinated in order to keep their jobs. And I think that the species right now as a whole is raw and bruised and somewhat numb and still in a state of disbelief and trauma. And um, I notice this all the time in the way people drive, because I had so many driving jobs in the early part of my life. My first job was as a drugstore delivery boy, driving a car. I tend to really tune in to the psychic messages I get from the way people drive. And I've noticed in the last couple of years, a lot of people cutting each other off as if the other people don't even exist. And people seem to be driving around in a state of numbness and fear and anxiety, rather than fully embodied and anchored in their bodies, in their cars. And so it feels like getting back to the body is one great way to mine the shadows and get to the light.
Yeah, I think your example too is really illuminating just how easy it is during times like this where there is real crisis happening and simultaneously there's artificial crisis happening, and our ability to actually find the truth of our own karmic entanglements inside of all of that anxiety and the incredible conditions that are out there, um, so that we're not just like using our energy. It's so easy to let your energy get used up by these things. Are not Some of these things are not necessarily ours to be totally enthralled with, but it serves other people for our attention to be completely manipulated. So it does feel like a really important time for even being clear, like what are the karmic pieces we're untangling, and stay true to our own development and our own um, role, not from a place of selfishness, but from a place of actual collective liberation that's coming through each individual actually doing the work that they're here to do. um, but that anxiety and that energy, it's like so um, it just is amazing to watch at how much counter force it takes to keep our thought forms on things that are constructive and positive when there's just so much that's trying to hook us into these spirals that are sometimes super insignificant and not necessarily in the highest of service to be completely caught up in.
Yeah, I think daily life has become a shamanic initiation. Um, and that's part of things getting exposed that, I think one of the benefits of social media is it's a lot harder to hide the wrong things that are happening all around the planet. Somebody's always someplace with a cell phone camera taking a video or sending a message, um, and so the spin doctors of government and media are having to work overtime to really try and weave webs of deceit, um, that that make a lot of the rest of the people think that our leaders and our political parties are doing great things and wonderful things, and we should vote for them, and rather than fomenting the revolution that's got to be coming, because whatever side of the fence you're on, right or left or liberal or conservative or Democrat or Republican, or in whatever country that you're living in, um, the old systems are breaking down, and something has to replace them, and it has to start with finding the rightfulness of your own being, with that there's something right about you. There's something necessary. There's a reason why your soul chose to be here at this time. And, I think if there are future generations of human beings, they're going to look back at this period as either the beginning of the end, or a whole new resurrection for humanity, where we wake up and remember that we're made of love. We're here for reasons of love. Um, Unless you're really living the love that's in your heart and soul, you're wasting your time. And there's a brutal awakening in store for a lot of people who are still sleepwalking, still waiting for the government to protect them, still trusting the pharmaceutical companies, still um, still thinking that the great big powers that be, the great white God, is going to make everything better for them. And um, whereas a whole bunch of other people, their eyes have been open and they've been shaken out of the trance. And um, so I'm I'm intending this broadcast to go out through the world along with my new book, The Ruby Heart of the Dragon, in the spirit of waking people up and reminding you that there's something so right beneath everything that's so wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. And thank you so much for that message because, I have found just the power and potency of recognizing the beauty in the world and really reinforcing that, because despite the human conundrums and the folly that we get into, there's so much beauty and magic. And even on the days when I can't find it in myself, I can find it out there in nature. And especially when the glorious summers of Vermont come and take over, it's much easier for me sometimes than some of the darker, drearier days in the winter. But there's just so much beauty and so much love, and there's so much that's right about life. And to be able to keep generating that itself is radical resistance. So thank you so much, Mark. Is there anything else you want to add before we sign off today?
Thanks, everyone.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll see you all next week, and then we'll be taking a break. So thanks for joining us today. We always appreciate you. Please like and subscribe from whatever channel this is streaming forth to you. It always helps us with the algorithms, and we're still kind of figuring all of this out. So your help makes a big difference.